You've been intrusive into people's personal lives. You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
Ooh, Fani. Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis was one of 7 witnesses at her own misconduct hearing as Donald Trump and his co-defendants try to get her disqualified. Her fiery testimony has already sparked intense conversation about race and gender in American culture. Joining me now, civil rights attorney Maya Wiley. She's the president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Maya, thank you very much for coming back to the Sunday show.
Always a pleasure.
Now, to my mind, the sound we just played of DA Willis was a turning point in her testimony, reminding people, like, who actually is on trial and why they're all gathered together in the courtroom in the first place. What did you think?
Well, I thought that was exactly right, and a reminder about what's actually at stake. Because remember that we're talking about Georgia. Georgia is the state where not only did Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, show up and make false statements, both testifying in front of the State House, but also a video that ended up endangering the lives of 2 black women who are public servants themselves, plus the fake elector scheme. We even know that there were folks that decided not to show up as electors, at least 4 of them, because it was so shady. And it was a context in which the former president himself at the time had called the Secretary of State trying to find votes.
Yeah, 11,780 votes.
Correct. So what we say here is, like, this is an effort to try to get a case, if not delayed, through there's no evidence of disqualification, so we should just take that off the table.
Okay.
But the massive distraction and the politics of the way they're playing the defense here, I think, is very much what we saw at play in these hearings. Now, it's a judge that's going to decide, but it is, as we know, there's a constant effort to portray defendants in these cases that took actions and make decisions all on their own, but as victims of a public servant's charge, which is to decide and bring to jurors, right? There was a grand jury that decided that there should be indictments here, not the district attorney herself, but a grand jury, that these people should be held accountable and be called to account before a jury of their peers. That's what's at stake here.
Now, you said a moment ago that you don't think that she will be disqualified, but let's just, for the folks who might be curious, if she is disqualified, what happens to the case?
Well, the case doesn't necessarily go away. So what happens if she's disqualified, and I do want to say why she won't be, but if she were to be disqualified, there is actually a committee that makes a decision about where to shift the case to. In other words, it will go to another district attorney. But what that means is that district attorney, what people worry about is, well, another district attorney could make a different decision about what to do with the case, about whether to keep all the indictments, whether to drop some of them, whether to... That's a lot of speculation about what another district attorney would do. I suspect with all this evidence, there would still be a prosecution of some people. But I just say that this disqualification is not going to happen because they don't have evidence to disqualify.
So, you know, DA Fani Willis had some other choice things to say. Let's listen.
I very much want to be here, so I'm not a hostile witness. I very much want to be here.
Not so much.
So let's be clear, because you lied in this. Let me tell you which one you lied in. Right here. I think you lied right here. No. This is the truth, Judge. And it is a lie. It is a lie. I don't need anything from a man. A man is not a plan. A man is a companion. I don't need anybody to foot my bills. The only man who's ever foot my bills completely is my daddy.
Now, we played that mashup because to me, that was what we were watching was a legal moment, but also a cultural moment. What did you think of not just the mashup that we just showed, but of her testimony overall?
Well, I mean, so much of, I think, one is she's saying, I'm not afraid to be here, right? That was part of what she was saying is, I'm not afraid here, and don't get it twisted. I think we also saw someone who wanted to stand up and obviously stand up for herself. And I think the reason it's such a big cultural and important conversation in this moment is because Black women have been struggling to get respect, be seen for their competence and who they are, but also to be recognized in their professional positions. She's the first Black woman to be a Fulton County district attorney. I mean, as of like 2015, 95% of district attorneys were white men. I mean, so this is both about like how she wants to be seen as not only as a professional and as a competent prosecutor, but also as someone who's able to take care of herself and who will stand up for herself.
You know, Robin Givhan, my Washington Post columnist colleague, she has a terrific column that was in the actual paper yesterday where she writes about Willis. She sat in the hot seat like it was her throne, and she was ready to slice off some heads. I knew that it was going to be on and popping when she said, after she walked in, she said, "Oh, no, I'm ready to go now." And
one of the things that we have seen in cases in which Donald Trump is a defendant is intimidation, right? And intimidation with words, and oftentimes words that are also racist. And if you're a Black prosecutor going up against Donald Trump, we've heard the racism.
Right.
Animal, peekaboo,
right.
Which rhymes with a racial slur. So part of, I think, what we were seeing with Fani Willis here is, I am not going to let you think you are doing that to me. And remember that she was being attacked back in the summer.
Right.
And she told everybody, it's good. We're just going to keep our heads down and do our jobs. So we're seeing a very different Fani Willis today.